Hello there, Mr. Sutton here with the IM342 Part 2 homework solutions on quadratic formula. On this quadratic equation, since we have this linear term, we either have to factor this or use quadratic formula. In either case, I'm just going to rewrite this with the coefficients kind of highlighted in different colors. I didn't really change anything. I just color-coded it so that my A value is red, my B value is blue, my C value is pink. All right, so this one, it turns out, is not factorable. You could try, but it doesn't work out. I'm just going to go straight to the quadratic formula on this one. So negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And it's safe to use the quadratic formula because they already gave this to us in standard form. Everything on one side in decreasing order. So plug in all that in. We have a negative b value of negative 8, so negative 8. Plus or minus square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 times the a value 2 times the c value negative 5 all over 2 times the a value 2. Simplifying, that's going to be positive 8 outside plus or minus square root of, this will be 64. And all these things multiplied together, let's see, this is negative 8 times negative 5. That's positive 40 in there. And then we have a 4 down below, 2 times 2. 64 plus 40 is 104. And I can definitely split that radical up. It's at least divisible by 4. 4 times 26. And I don't think there's any other perfect squares that go into 26. So this is as good as it's going to get after we simplify it. Square root of 4 is 2. And I notice here that 8, 2, and 4 are all divisible by 2. So I'm going to reduce these all by 2, and we can't touch the 26 because it's inside the radical. That's not really 26. It's the square root of 26, some crazy decimal. But reducing the other numbers, we've got 4 plus or minus just one radical 26 all over 2. And that's as simplified as it's going to get. For this problem, trying to solve this quadratic equation, I noticed that we have a linear term in there. So whatever method I'm going to use is going to require me to get everything over on one side. Let me subtract that 1 over to the left side. And while I'm doing it, I'll write out all the coefficients. So I've got 1x squared plus 4x minus 1 equals 0. Now, since we only have a simple x squared, like a 1x squared, you might think about factoring this. However, you're not going to be able to figure out numbers that multiply to negative 1 and add up to 4. So we're going to go straight to the quadratic formula then. Let me write that out. So here's our quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And let me plug in my values. So I've got negative b value of 4, so negative 4, plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times the a value 1 times the c value negative 1, all of that divided by 2 times that a value of 1. Simplifying further, this is just a negative 4 out here, and then we have plus or minus square root of 16 minus, let's see, this is all going to be a minus 4 times a minus 1 is positive 4, so really plus 4 in there. And then down below we just have 2. Well, 16 plus 4 is 20, so that's inside the square root. And I can simplify that radical. I should do that before I reduce the fraction. So this can split up into radical 4 times radical 5. The square root of 4 is 2, so that's 2 radical 5 over there. And then finally, it looks like 4, this coefficient here of 2 and 2, those are all divisible by 2. So I can rewrite this as negative 2 plus or minus 1 radical 5, or just a plus or minus radical 5, and I don't have to bother dividing it by 1 or writing divided by 1. I'm just going to write negative 2 plus or minus root 5. To solve this quadratic equation, I notice that we have a linear term, so I'm probably going to have to use quadratic formula on this. Let me subtract that 12x over to the left side to get this in standard form first. So I'll rewrite this as 4x squared minus 12x plus 13. And now that I've got this in standard form, let me write out the quadratic formula. That's negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug in some things in now. We've got negative b b value of negative 12, so negative 12 out there. And then that's plus or minus square root of negative 12 squared minus 4 times the a value 4 times the c value 13, all divided by 2 times that a value of 4. Simplifying things further, this negative 12 is now a positive 12. Plus or minus square root of, let's see, negative 12 squared is 144. And then 4 times 4 times 13, well, 4 times 13, that's 52. 4 times 52, that's going to be 208, and we're subtracting all that. And then finally, we have 2 times 4 below, that's going to be 8. Let me simplify the stuff inside that radical. 144 minus 208, that is going to be negative 64, and that's important because you have a negative inside the radical. So let me go ahead and take out an I to get that to be a positive 64 in there. And then the square root of 64 is going to be 8, so this is 8i. And then finally, I notice that 12, 8i, and 8 are all divisible by 4, so I can take out a common factor of 4 from all of those and rewrite this now as 3 plus or minus 2i all over 2. For this quadratic equation, we have a linear term, so we're going to have to either use quadratic formula or maybe factoring. Either way, let's get everything over to the left side. So we've got x squared minus 6x plus 11 equals 0. And let's see here, two numbers that multiply to 11 and add up to negative 6, they don't exist. You only have 1 and 11, and that's not going to give you a negative 6. So now we have to use quadratic formula. That's negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And plugging stuff in, we've got a negative 6 for b, so that's negative 6. And then we have the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times the a value 1 times the c value 11 all over 2 times the a value 1. So simplifying, we've got positive 6 out front, plus or minus square root of, this is going to be 36 minus 44 all over 2. 36 minus 44 is negative 8. And then I can simplify that a little bit by taking out an I. And while I'm at it, I can split 8 up into radical 4 times radical 2. Square root of 4 is 2, so this is 6 plus or minus 2i radical 2 over 2. And I can reduce this. The 6 here, this 2, and this 2 down here are all reducible by 2. So I can rewrite this then as 3 plus or minus I radical 2. And we don't need to write over 1. We can just write that the way it is. For this quadratic equation, we have a linear term, so I have to use either factoring or quadratic formula. This one actually does turn out to be factorable, but if you didn't bother trying, you can go straight to the quadratic formula. Let me just rewrite this, though, with the coefficients a little more clearly. So I'm just going to put a minus 1x right there, just to show what that coefficient really is. And now our quadratic formula, we have negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we've got plugging things in here. This is going to be negative 1, because b itself is negative 1, plus or minus square root of negative 1 squared minus 4 times the a value 2 times the c value negative 1 all over 2 times that a value of 2. Simplifying, this is a positive 1 out here, plus or minus square root of, let's see, negative 1 squared is just positive 1. This is going to be minus 4 times 2 is negative 8 times negative 1 is positive 8. And we have a 4 down below. So we've got square root of 9 then, which we know is 3. So we have 1 plus or minus 3 over 4. Since I can combine 1 and 3, I actually do have to go a little further and figure out the two answers. So we have 1 plus 3 over 4. That's 4 over 4, which is just 1. We also have 1 minus 3 over 4. That's negative 2 over 4, which is negative 1/2 if we reduce it.